I have a vital message for you. Do you feel uptight, tense, taut? That's why I am here. To tell you a simple word. A word that will give you immediate release, make a new man or woman of you. And yet the secret lies in one easy-to-remember Anglo-Saxon four-letter word.
Pulp. It's all about popular entertainment. This is the world's worst Lionel Stander impression, but this is such an oddball picture.
Big mouth, you're killing the whole spiel. Ladies and gentlemen, the word is pulp. P for laughs, U for excitement, L for action, P for fantastic.
Imagine a British beat the devil and you start to get the idea. It's pulp. Popular entertainment.
Hello and welcome back to this damnful idealistic crusade. This video is a review of the Arrow video release on Blu-ray of the 1972 gem Pulp, directed by Mike Hodges, produced by Michael Klinger, and starring Michael Caine, the three Michaels who had the previous year made the masterpiece Get Carter. This was the next film they teamed up on to follow in Carter's success, and unfortunately they didn't keep making films after this point. They all kind of went their separate ways, and it's a shame because even though they had different backgrounds and they had different viewpoints, they managed to be able to come together and make two really interesting films. Get Carter, of course, is a masterpiece, and you would think that Pulp would be similar to Carter. It is not. The similarities end with the three Michaels and the fact that you still have Mike Hodges' sense of dark humor that's sort of detached. But that is now made front and center, and Michael Caine is playing a very oddball character that is just as oddball as the film is. The film is an oddball. It defies genre. It is a comedy. It is also a detective film. It is also a unreliable narrator film. It is noirish. It also has elements of slapstick in it. It has societal commentary, as you get in every Hodges film. It has elements that are based on real-life events and real-life political scandal in Italy in particular. But all of this is brought together in a film that you see it and you literally sit there going, how did this get made? How did this get made? Every time I see this, I find it miraculous this film got made. It could not have been made any time after the 1970s. And it's just one of those magical little films that most people probably are not going to get it, admittedly. And those who actually see it and do get it, you cherish this because there's nothing else in the world like it. To talk about the plot in the barest terms, to give you an idea of the sort of setup, Pulp deals with the character of Mickey King, who is played by Michael Caine. He is a ghostwriter of what are usually seen as very trashy pulp novels, very much in the sort of vein or mold of Mickey Spillane writing Mike Hammer. And the film has fun playing with this in terms of Caine's character doesn't quite take himself very seriously, but he knows he could also be a great writer if he really tried to. And he also tells the film's story in voiceover, and right from the get-go, we get the film's sense of quirky humor with an absolutely staggeringly funny opening where King's novel is being transcribed at essentially a sort of it looks like a secretarial pool, but you have a bunch of older women typing out his novel that he recorded on tape. So they're transcribing it, and they're used to just doing technical manuals and. It's a very pulpy story, so it's full of all kinds of fun luridness, and you can see them start to get hot and bothered very, very quickly. It's an absolutely brilliant, hysterical opening sequence that is perfectly staged, and that sets up the film perfectly, that you know this is going to play with the illusion of what is seen versus what's actually going on. But Caine's character narrates the whole film and constantly not only takes the mickey out of himself and seems to be caught up in situations very quickly that he is sort of not able to fully comprehend, but he also makes jokes and even breaks the fourth wall a little bit, so it becomes very apparent that this could be just as strange and unbelievable and perhaps as constructed as one of his pulp novels. That is one way you can see the film, and it does really craft the sense of the unreliable narrator as soon as the film starts. But Caine's character is contracted to be be the ghostwriter of a biography, but he's not told who the subject is, and he's sent out to a particular place. And it, of course, intrigue immediately starts, and he's not exactly sure why. He essentially is told to go and ghostwrite the biography of a former Hollywood star who has connections to the mafia and many other things, so he definitely has a reputation. This is the character played by Mickey Rooney, who is very much, at least based in part, on stories surrounding George Raft. The film is essential for classic Hollywood fans because it is peppered and loaded and constructed full of direct parallels to real Hollywood figures and stories and anecdotes, but also classic films. And we see many familiar faces pop up. Mickey Rooney has an absolute field day in this film, and Hodges admitted in all of the interviews and things in the years afterwards that he was a force of nature and pretty much everyone had to just go along for the ride, and that he was not a easy person to necessarily direct, so he had to be very creative in how he directed him to get the original scene across. But you wouldn't know it from seeing this film, because Rooney is a life force in this film, and he pretty much just charges in and takes everything over. And it is to Michael Caine's credit that he is able to underplay against Rooney just right to get the inherent detached, cynical observer viewpoint across, but also Caine plays humor so well and never gets credit for it like he should. And all you have to do is see Pulp one time. He is able to deadpan his way through this film with aplomb and ease that make you wish that he could have been in a classic screwball comedy. Again, this film is filled with screwball moments, even though it gets quite dark in places. And there are, there is an actual body count by the end of the film. It has a morbid streak to it, but it is also blisteringly funny, even in a slapstick way throughout. We also see other famous faces pop up. Rooney's handler is played by Lionel Stander, the great Lionel Stander, who is a joy and a delight in this film. As soon as he shows up, I mean, any classic film fan will perk up. And to see him and Michael Caine interact, and then with Mickey Rooney being at, full gonzo levels of energy, it's just delicious. And if that were not enough, we also get the return to the screen after a very long absence of Lisbeth Scott. Mike Hodges was able to convince her to come back to play this part of a character that's very much designed to be a femme fatale type. And having the baggage of it being obviously a star who had not been on the screen in a great number of years, coming back after all this time, in addition to having Lionel Stander and Mickey Rooney and a lot of other classic film references, that does further this sort of self-referential quality that Pulp has. And it's a treat seeing her on the screen again. Obviously, she is much older, but she still looks fantastic. And at the best moments are when you see her able to sort of get back into the swing of things and enjoy performing in the various scenes with these real heavy hitters in terms of the actors surrounding her. And Hodges did discuss that, he was glad that he got her to come out of retirement for this film, but he did have to really work hard at getting her confidence level up a bit, because it had been so long, and making her feel at ease and things, and really having a good handle on her situation and how to handle that and how to understand her psychologically at that moment, which is what a great director does, and how to control your own actions and how you relate to all the different temperaments of all the other actors and performers. And again, with Mickey Rooney going at, level 25, 100%, I'm sure made everything more difficult, which is what Hodges indicates. And by the time all of our cast of assorted characters, our motley crew, is brought together, we very quickly realize, along with Caine's character, that at any moment, for seemingly an unknown reason, or a reason not as yet discovered, Mickey King will be eliminated or killed in some fashion, and many attempts are made. And so we, the audience, sort of have to bumble along through the film along with Caine's character and be just as confused and perplexed and bemused by all the insane things that happen, simply because he's sent out ostensibly to ghostwrite this character's biography. That is the general plot setup. That is pretty much the only plot you get, and the rest and the ultimate climax of the film is built up to, and we get little elements doled out. But it's such a quirky film that, again, it's not necessarily about the plot. The plot is merely the setup to get us into this sort of wacky land that is part screwball comedy, part classic Hollywood farce with all of these familiar faces, and part bitterly ironic, dark film made by the same people who just made Get Carter. And trying to imagine all three of those elements coming together, it's such a bizarre concept. It is not what you expect the people who just made Get Carter to go and do. And I'm just amazed that Klinger and Caine went along with Hodges on this, and they actually got this financed and got it made and got it released. It's just astonishing this film ever got made. It is so quirky, though, that it doesn't work for everyone, and you will very much see the reactions be polar opposites. It did get a lot of great critical notices when it was released, but it has very quickly, it became a cult film over time, and its fan base is small but very devoted, because there simply is nothing else like this. And I stress the classic Hollywood connections, because the first time I saw this, I had no clue these were there. And it's not just having the familiar faces in big roles. We even have nods to, not nods, they're really in there. There is a blackbird, and there is a character that is cast in a sort of Bogart light, in terms of being a Bogart type character trying to be the police inspector investigating what's going on. But Hodges even went to the length of casting in that role a rather close Bogart lookalike. So you even have in moments visuals of a Bogart lookalike in a Bogart type role, even smoking and having a Bogart looking suit on and having a black bird, so you couldn't say Maltese Falcon more if you tried. And because the film's tone is so whimsical and unique, and they shot it in Malta, so it has a very European flavor, there's only one film that you're going to think of when you see Pulp, and that's Beat the Devil. So if you love Beat the Devil, this is your film. If you hated Beat the Devil, you're probably not going to like this. And if you ever wondered if there was a weird enough film on the level of Beat the Devil that defies genre and is seemingly constantly pulling the rug out from under itself by inserting this whimsical, detached humor in what should be more technically a dramatic, gripping thriller story or crime story or detective thriller with some really phenomenal screen legends from a brilliant director, that's Pulp. Pulp is the spiritual successor to Beat the Devil. That is the only film you can even start to compare this to, because it is so genuinely and beautifully odd It is the successor to Beat the Devil in all of that sense. The only thing it doesn't have for Beat the Devil is you don't have Peter Lorre's amazing time monologue, which is one of the greatest speeches any actor's ever had in any part in any play, film, or any piece of media, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that is the best description, I think, for trying to describe how Pulp plays as a film. It is the spiritual successor to Beat the Devil. So again, if you don't like Beat the Devil, you are probably not going to like this film. It is also a film, like pretty much every film Hodges ever made, that does really require and reward repeat viewings. This is a film to return to over time. It was also not an easy film to edit. The extras go into it, but they actually had to bring on John Glenn, the famous John Glenn of second unit in editing and directing fame, particularly in the Bond series, who is a genius editor in particular, in addition to being a brilliant director of being able to put together in stage sequences of different genres. But he had to come in and do a whole second edit of the film because the first time they tried to edit it, it was too weird and it didn't work. And apparently the first editor didn't quite get what they were going after. And apparently a lot of people didn't get what Hodges was going after. So it took concentrated effort to even be able to edit this film. And the extras go into it, and John Glenn talks about it and has talked about it in interviews and things as well, that he had to work hard to make the film work and to keep the energy going, and that it was because it was so unusual. It was a difficult film even to edit and piece together from all these disparate elements. So it's remarkable they pulled it off. It is indescribably effervescent and dark in places. It is morbid in places, and it is gut-burstingly hysterical in places. There's so much whimsy and comedy in here that, you know, if you found out other famous names were involved, you might believe it. There's flourishes of like late period Billy Wilder and I.L. Diamond in here. There's even some touches that you might expect from a Blake Edwards film in here. It is so full of references and different ideas and creativity, and simply put, it is fun. It is intelligent, but it has fun in it, and it enjoys what it's doing. And if you can get on board with this whimsy, weird, wacky ride and follow Michael Caine's character on as he and you, the audience, become increasingly confused as to what the hell is going on, it will be a rewarding experience. And even if you didn't like it so much the first time, it is a film that opens up on the second viewing and the third viewing, and then you become part of the Pulp cult following. And you find you're going to start quoting it, and you think of it all the time, and then you want to watch it again and again, because there simply is nothing like it. Now, to talk about the Arrow release, this was done a number of years ago, but it was a brand new 2K scan done and handled by Arrow themselves, which is leaps and bounds above the old MGM master that they finally put out on DVD. This film did turn up on television quite a bit, but it was always, obviously squashed into a TV ratio and not a very good print, and it didn't play as well as it should. This is not a visual marvel. This is still, of course, Mike Hodges a year after Get Carter, and while he did change cameramen, it does retain quite a lot of his very realistic style, but it's also a film that is filled with a lot of browns and more browns and more browns and even more browns. So it's not a colorful film. It would be just usually described as quite drab. There's a lot of browns in the locations and just the areas themselves, and it has a certain visual style that will very much ground it, but it's not going to be something that wows you visually, obviously. So this is, again, leaps and bounds over the old MGM DVD. It looks quite excellent, but of course it is not a meticulous restoration, so you do need to expect. There are some spots do seem to be inherent to the original film source itself they were using. There are a couple spots where the photography seems a bit softer, and there's also a short sequence or two that seems like it may be from dupe material or just a generation away for whatever reason. That all seems to be intrinsic. There is one shot in particular, there's a long shot when the characters are at some ruins where it does seem like they like there's maybe just a tiny bit of haloing around their heads in the long shot. Again, that might be intrinsic to the original photography. I remember when I saw this film on DVD before, that shot stuck out as looking a little dodgy, so it again might just be inherent to the source. But that is the one shot that stands out the most. Everything else is very minor. There's maybe one or two small spots of just a tiny bit of frame wobble, and then there are a couple of individual specks scattered throughout the film. Nothing major, and as I usually say, I would much rather have an occasional speck or two pop up in a transfer that's a new scan, as opposed to the more common, unfortunate practice of just, going to crazy town with the with DNR application and trying to normalize said film transfer. I'd much rather have a more natural warts and all approach with just an occasional speck showing up, a little bit of wobble in a shot or two. That's more stuff that's intrinsic to the source. So don't expect this to be fully pristine, but it still is a gigantic leap forward over the old MGM Standard Def Master that was done who knows how long ago. I should also mention this transfer was supervised by the original cinematographer. Also, there is an interesting quirk with the logos. They did put on a vintage United Artists Transamerica logo from the early 70s, but it has the 1990s UA music fanfare. So if you know that very well, the sort of twinkling star on the background 90s UA logo, well, that music is underneath the 70s UA Transamerica logo, which I thought was amusing. At least they were trying to put a vintage logo on, but it's not the right music. And then also, this does have the original BBFC rating card on it, which you don't often see on video releases, so I thought that was a cool touch. The audio is the original mono mix. It sounds pretty good here. It is in lossless quality, but this is also a lower budgeted 1972 film mono track that was mostly shot on location, so the quality is obviously never going to be reference grade. Because it also uses extensive amount of voiceover, it is maybe a little bit thin sounding at times, particularly on the dubbed in voiceover, because you're having to mix and match generations, of course. But it still sounds, good and healthy, and it sounds, I haven't seen the DVD in a long time, but that's how I remembered the DVD sounding, so I'm sure they just reused the same MGM audio track. I've not seen an older copy of this film. There are not very many. This film was not never very popular, so even getting it on disc in widescreen was a huge, gigantic thing when MGM's DVD came out, let alone getting this new 2K scan and Arrow Blu-ray with new supplements. So the audio is what it is, intrinsic to the production, but it sounds great for what it is, and we get it in lossless quality. Now, for the packaging, this is a dual-sided release in terms of we get the original poster artwork, which is beautifully whimsical. So this was used on the UK one sheet, the UK quad, and I think the American one sheet used this, but slightly tweaked it a little. And then the rear matches that, but it's mostly sold under the new artwork that was created that is used on the booklet and the disc label as well. So when you look this up or you purchase it, it's going to have the new custom artwork that was designed for this release. The booklet is nice because not only do we get an Alexander Heller-Nicholas essay, but we also get a piece that Mike Hodges wrote a couple years ago about the sort of delayed fan reaction to this film, because he met the famous author J.G. Ballard, who apparently was a gigantic fan of this film and wound up writing him a fan letter about how much he loved Pulp. So Hodges experienced firsthand on several occasions just how the film had developed a cult following when he had thought that everybody had just kind of forgotten about it. So this is another lovely, as always, Arrow booklet. We do get the restoration notes, and it clocks in at about 30 pages. So it's nicely done, very simple, straightforward, but we also get more of the lovely new artwork. To talk about the other on-disc supplemental features, we have the new 2K restoration by Arrow, cinematographer supervised, the original soundtrack and lossless quality, optional English subtitles. Then we have a brand new, for this release, lengthy interview with Mike Hodges talking about the film and the sort of delayed reaction to it and how he's still absolutely delighted with the film, even though it didn't make a lot of money and it is notably weird and it is a complete oddball, but he was so pleased with it and enamored of it because it turned out pretty much exactly how he conceived it, and it is so completely bemusing. So this is perhaps the purest Mike Hodges experience in the cinematic medium, because nobody else could have made something this wonderfully bemused, cynical, detached, based in reality, but also completely wacky at the same time. And of course, it's amazing that everybody else was game for it and that Michael Caine threw himself into it, because this is just such a gem. So we get this wonderful, lengthy Mike Hodges interview. He's actually in his house in front of his bookshelf, so that makes it feel nice and intimate. But it's just wonderful to see him, smiling about his memories of the film and how it's taken a while, but people actually seem to remember it and like it. And so he's happy that there are people that actually like this weird film he made. Then we get a brand new interview with the original cinematographer, Osama Rawi, who also supervised the transfer. He talks about it being very early in his career and what he tried to bring to it visually, how he tried to combat all of the browns everywhere, how he tried to at least jazz up the visuals where he could, and how his working relationship was with Hodges and how the film ultimately developed. So that is another wonderful new interview piece. We also get a full interview with John Glenn, who, as I've said, goes into detail about how he was the second editor brought on and how he had to kind of figure out how to make this film work and how to put all these disparate elements together, and how the first editor apparently just didn't get it, and how it was a total mess when he just was like thrown into the editing room. He was just like, what what do I do with this? So this will completely reveal how he had to reconstruct various elements and how he had to somehow keep the energy level going to keep the film from getting stagnant, and how he had to really fight with the edit to get it just right or as good as he possibly could. So this is an incredible interview, of course, for John Glenn fans and for people who want to study the editing of films to better understand film editing. This is a perfect extra. Then we get a brand new interview for this release with Tony Klinger, who is the son of the film's producer Michael Klinger, who goes into greater detail about his dad, about the sort of production company the three Michaels formed, and how it was kind of a shame that they didn't make any more films after this point, but that even though this film was super weird and not everybody got it, that everybody was pleased enough with it, even if they themselves apparently didn't fully get it. So this is just another wonderful, very insightful extra about the actual production and the people behind it. And we get the original, very quirky trailer that Mike Hodges himself shot and was apparently lost for a long time, and he was thrilled it survived. It's got a wonderful extra bit with Lionel Stander directly talking to the audience, and it's wonderfully cheeky, so it is perfectly representative of the film itself. Unfortunately, it's not HD. It is an old standard def file upscaled. It looks fine, but hopefully one day that trailer shows up in better quality, because it's just just so wonderfully done. And then we also get some image galleries, which have some really nice production stills and nice, decent quality. It's actually separated into 4 different ones. And then randomly, I notice you'll see that there's a still of Burt Lancaster walking around. So I don't know if he visited the set or if that's even having to do with Pulp, but I just found it bemusing and actually very fitting in a weird way that all of a sudden in stills of Pulp, and Pulp being so weird and so quirky and so unreliable in terms of its narration and so full of Hollywood lore, that all of a sudden in the middle of there's a picture of Burt Lancaster walking around. So like, gosh, he would have been great in this if he just literally walked through it. It would have just fit in some strange, bizarre way to have Burt Lancaster walk through Pulp. But I thought that was interesting. But it was nice. We actually got a photo gallery as well. And then, of course, the newly commissioned artwork. So that is the Arrow Blu-ray of the 1972 complete oddball but absolute delightful film experience, Pulp, from the 3 Michaels who brought you Get Carter the year before. So if you've seen Get Carter and you've never seen any of Hodges' other work, or you're wanting to see more of Michael Caine's much more obscure and very offbeat films, this is a must. It is definitely a film that is for a select audience. It's not going to gel with most people who are probably going to be scratching their heads and come away very confused. But if you're able to interact with the film and get on board with its complete quirky weirdness that also contains some hard-hitting social commentary and is based around real events and real people, just slightly transmogrified and disguised a little bit, and the central event in the film is actually based on a real event that happened in Italian political history, then you're going to have a really fun time. And you can see very quickly why this has become such a cult film. No, it is not a Get Carter sequel. It has nothing to do with Get Carter. It is the polar opposite. It's the inverse of Get Carter. It's not just the polar opposite. It is completely inverted from Get Carter. And it shows the incredible range that the 3 Michaels could have at this point in 1972. There is no other time point in cinema where this such a quirky oddball film could be made. And you will see this and you will have the question to yourself, how in the hell did this ever get made? It defies trying to pigeonhole it as a particular genre. It defies trying to fully analyze the plot. You're not really meant to. It's meant to be experienced. And again, because our narrator, the Caine character, is himself quirky and weird and not the most reliable narrator, you have to call things into question that you're actually told or shown as not perhaps being what they seem and not being real. It definitely is going to reward repeat viewings, and you're going to be thinking about it a lot because it is so quirky and weird and bizarre, and once you fall in love with it, you'll never fall out of love with it. It's a film to cherish, and it is definitely the definition of a cult film favorite. So those are my thoughts on the Arrow Blu-ray release of Pulp, which is a gem. I would recommend this to any Caine fans, any Mike Hodges fans, anyone who loved Get Carter. If you want the experience of the next film they made together and you want something that's completely different, well, Pulp is just for you, but just don't go into it expecting Get Carter 2, because you're not going to get that. You're just not. It is completely whimsical and just madcap fun in all the best ways, but also intelligent fun too. It has a sense of intelligence. It never goes into wackiness, but it has flourishes of wackiness. That's what makes it so special and unique. And if anything, it is the spiritual successor to Beat the Devil. So as always, I hope my babblings about classic films and physical media releases have been at least somewhat fun and informative. And please do keep supporting both boutique labels and studio labels by buying films on disc to help keep physical media and film culture alive. And thank you ever so much for watching.
Michael Caine, Mickey Rooney, Lisbeth Scott, and a particularly good performance from me. Remember the word. Pulp. Feel free to tell all your enemies about it. Yours sincerely, Lionel Stander. Run me off 20 million copies of this pitch.